largest trading partner with over $89 billion in goods trade. They're struggling to close their trade issues, but it seems that there's more hope for them when it comes to defense.
Yes, that is correct. And in fact, President Trump referred to Prime Minister Modi as a tough negotiator today when he was giving this speech. I mean, this just points towards the fact that there has been a bit of tension between the two parties. The trade negotiations began months ago. I mean, they started in 2019, somewhere around September and October, and still the two parties have not been able to finalize a trade deal. And as we heard from experts and sources, a number of people just said that whenever the delegation from these two countries would sit down around the table and try to iron out some of the details, it just seemed like both these parties wouldn't budge. I mean, President Trump has called in the past that India has been slightly unfair to the US, and that was just days before his visit to India. So there is certain degree of tension between the two countries when it comes to trade, because under President Trump, US, and under Prime Minister Modi, India, both these countries have become slightly more protectionist. Both these countries talk about very similar policies. For example, you've got Make in America and Make in India, two very similar manufacturing policies. So that has made this trade deal slightly problematic.
Let's talk about the reception that Donald Trump got there. We've heard that he was at a cricket stadium with one of the largest capacities, if not the largest capacity in India. Rapturous crowds almost. And I'm reading in quotes that Donald Trump has a 56% approval rating, higher than other foreign leaders like Angela Merkel or Vladimir Putin. Talk to us about the reception and how the crowd dealt with him.
Well, the people in Ahmedabad are clearly in awe of President Trump. And they're clearly in awe of Prime Minister Modi himself, because this is Ahmedabad, a very prominent city in Gujarat. This is where Prime Minister Modi became a politician that he is today. He served here for more than a decade. And people who love Prime Minister Modi, just by extension, happen to love President Trump as well. They're both very similar personalities. They've got very similar worldview. And in the stadium today, we saw President Trump drop a number of drop a lot of Bollywood hints and names like the famous Indian cricketer of Sachin Tendulkar. All these things just seem to drive the Indian crowds crazy. They already clearly love President Trump, but all these references that he's made today while giving this speech, they clearly resonated with the crowd. He also heaped a lot of praise on Prime Minister Modi, and doing that in the city, which is considered a very stronghold for the ruling party, the BJP, and also for Prime Minister Modi, that sends out a very strong message. And this is clearly the kind of optics that these two leaders were hoping that they would get. They have been heaping praises on one another, and both of them just come out looking good in this scenario.
Talk to us about the rest of the official visit by US President Donald Trump in India. What else is expected?
So today he's going to fly to Agra, where he will visit the iconic Taj Mahal, which has long stood as a symbol of love. He will then go to New Delhi, where the two parties are expected to talk a little bit about trade. But more than that, it perhaps will be a more in-depth discussion on the arms deal that the US has announced. President Trump said in his speech today that there will be a very big arms deal between the two countries. And clearly, US does require a buyer like India, which has got a massive appetite for such a deal. And India in return also requires great armory, great weapons, just top of the class aircrafts and stuff like that. And the arms deal is perhaps going to be the most important negotiation that takes place. And all of that will happen tomorrow in New Delhi when these two leaders and also delegates from these two countries, India and the US, sit down for a talk.
Ishan Garg, our correspondent in Ahmedabad, India, joining us there to discuss US President Donald Trump's visit to India. Now, China is battling to contain the deadly